to Green Rabbits.
You are listening to your favorite podcast again. You're welcome.
Thanks for coming back.
And Nancy and I are excited about this conversation because it is Pedestrian Safety Awareness Month.
For all of October. And ideally we should be living like it's Pedestrian Safety Month every single day of the year, but it's fine.
So just a reminder, you are not stuck in traffic. You are the traffic. And we're just going to give a few reasons why we should respect pedestrians, especially in this month, building more awareness, and then also just really great ways to lessen car traffic.
But before we do all that, we do want to highlight a project that we're working on that's really hand in hand with a lot of this like Pedestrian Safety Month guidelines that we're going to share with you later in the episode. But one of the bigger campaigns that we're working on is this group we call Sharpen, which stands for the Safe and Healthy Roosevelt Park Neighborhood. And this project, we were invited to come in and by we, I mean like UCC, the environmental team. We were invited to come in to work with the Roosevelt Park Neighborhood Association because they were having some issues with, basically, we've talked about frontline communities before on this podcast, right? So we don't need to redefine that.
Not enough.
We haven't talked about them enough, but we have talked about them before. The Roosevelt Park neighborhood is a predominantly Latino and Black neighborhood. Not to say that that's all there is there, but it's just predominantly Latino and Black. And it is like a lower income neighborhood. Has a very high immigrant population. It's kind of on the fringe of Grand Rapids. So it's kind of like your last little like leave to, when you're leaving into Wyoming or it's heading out of the city.
It's like the bridge, the in between of those two spaces for sure.
It almost has like and then some people refer to it as like Little Mexico. I've heard it referred to it as just because of the amount of just like culture that's there, right?
Absolutely.
Like, there's like a lot of like little local restaurants, a lot of little local stores.
Can we coin that term? I mean, not me personally, but like, can that just be a thing? Like
Little Mexico?
Little Mexico.
It does sound cute.
It's so cute. Everyone has a little something. But anyway, keep going.
But it's one of the biggest issues and challenges this community is facing is that due to like redlining, we're seeing like we know kind of what redlining is, right? Or do you want to give like a quick definition for that?
I mean, redlining is essentially people who have been cornered into living in certain areas because of their ethnicity, because of their race, because of their financial situation, but
economic
mostly
class and stuff,
exactly. And it's mostly Black, brown, indigenous people of color who get redlined. And so they are not only cornered into only being able to buy homes into certain areas by either realtors, banks, lenders, or just this general standard of the area that they live in. We have been historically pushed away from owning homes in certain spaces, and also living in certain spaces. So this can come down to somebody saying, oh, your credit check doesn't pass, or, just little tiny things that we have to go through. Honestly, if you ask me, even having somebody pay a fee to do a application for renting is some form of redlining because people can't afford those types of things. So anyway, redlining is the historic term, or the term for historically marginalizing people into certain neighborhoods.
Yes. So the Roosevelt Park neighborhood is kind of a red line neighborhood, right? So it's right next to like industrial plants. It's right next to the highway. Like all these like the industry, like it's not healthy, right? To be around that stuff so close to it. Especially when you got kids and stuff playing around in areas where, like, for example, there's been, and I think it's something that we've mentioned before, but there's been PFAS contamination, kind of in the Roosevelt Park or in Black Hills area.
On Godfrey.
Yep. And then there's also, like I said, it's right next to the highway. So just think about the amount of just like smog and everything that's right close to the area.
Yes.
But because of that, like one of the issues with the neighborhood is already burdened with pollution, right? From like all sides. But an additional source of pollution is just through traffic from trucks trying to hop on the highway. that cut right through Cesar Chavez. And we're going to refer to that just kind of as the Roosevelt Park corridor, because it is kind of like that main street. It's almost like the downtown street of that neighborhood.
Yep. So, and Cesar starts at Granville downtown, and it runs through, I don't know where it turns into Cesar, or if it's just Cesar the whole road now.
It's Cesar up until Clyde Park, and then that's when it hits the Wyoming city limit, and it turns into Chicago Drive.
Yep, and it turns into, that's exactly where I was getting. So it turns into Chicago Drive. And so the reason why trucks use this is because this used to be a road that trucks were allowed to use for industry specifically. So this has been an issue for literally decades.
Yeah. So years and years and years ago, back in, and I don't remember the year, but I want to say it was like the year like around 2000. But we were, and by we I mean the Roosevelt Park Neighborhood Association, and residents and neighbors had organized to try and change the classification of that road of Cesar from back when it was called Granville, living on the Ville. But they changed the classification so that it turned it from a truck route into a major road, to try and help discourage a lot of that truck traffic. Unfortunately, because that hasn't been changed on Google, when truck drivers put in their GPS, like that still shows up as like a route that they can take. So we're still seeing a lot of heavy truck traffic. And I'm not even saying like those little delivery trucks that are just like a truck. I'm talking about like 18-wheelers, just like massive industrial trucks that are carrying like a lot of materials and waste. And all of that soils the city. It ruins the roads. There's an elementary school right on the corner of Cesar Chavez and Hall, and like when kids are getting out, like that gets crazy.
Well, there's multiple schools along that stretch. There are after school programs, there are hospitals and grocery stores and shops and so many residents.
Yeah, and literally just like houses, right? Like just people are just living there. But they're having to deal with all this, like, not just, like, the actual literal pollution of these trucks just barreling through all the time, but also, like, the noise pollution, because, you know, like, these trucks are just passing by, like, at all hours of day and night.
Shaking the windows.
Like, literally rattling the windows. And, like, I know because I've been to a lot of these houses and a lot of these spaces, and whenever a truck passes by, sometimes you have to, like, pause your conversation because of how loud they are.
Actually, fun fact, because of noise pollution from cars, we often have to cut things out of our podcast, because really no matter where you are in the city, you're going to be hearing the massive trucks that are driving by, and that is a huge deficit to the ability to, you know, do your job, to concentrate, to sleep well. I mean, these are all things that people deal with when there's constant traffic driving by, especially your home. So yeah, a lot of people in Roosevelt Park neighborhood are really facing this at a higher rate than other people are because of the amount of industry there. And then also because it used to be a road that trucks used years ago. And so the reason why we're rounding back to Sharpen is because we need to, again, talk about getting the trucks off of Granville, which is what it used to be called. Get the truck off Granville. If you've heard that, we're forming the same coalition, just with more people involved and trying to get the same exact idea across.
Yeah. So for the little section of Granville that's between Franklin Street and Hall Street, like 91% of people felt that they were not safe crossing the street.
And 90 what?
91% of people.
Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. So like that just goes to show like it's just like a really big safety hazard. That area also has like a really high pedestrian population too. So like, you know, a lot of people that just don't have cars and like just walking is kind of what they do. And then so I was close on the 2000s. So that they actually started the campaign in 1998.
Okay.
So we are like 25 years
we were 5
into this battle, I'm saying. So that's when we changed it from a truck route to, and then we tried to just like reroute it through MDOT. In the early 2000s, they, like earlier efforts, did some streetscaping that included like some bus stops and sidewalks and stuff. In 2016, there was a Get the Truck Off online position to get petition to get MDOT to transfer the ownership of the street to Grand Rapids. Also in 2016, there was some street calming demonstrations in the Roosevelt Park area from September 30 to September 10, which tested the viability of some crosswalks, ADA accessible ramps, seating, landscaping, and other things within like the right of way. And then the demonstration resulted in trucks and vehicles having to slow and yield to pedestrians, right? Mm-hmm. So they kind of just had like a little bit of this like direct action just to be like, hey, like how accessible really are these streets to the people that are actually living here?
Not at all.
In 2017, MDOT did transfer that section of road to the city of Grand Rapids. And part of this was because of an area-specific plan. So when you guys hear about the area-specific plan surveys going out, next year in a couple years, I think they only happen every 20 years though, right? Right now we're in the middle of right now the Grand Rapids is like they're kind of still collecting some feedback for the next ASPs, so make sure you keep your ears out for that. But anyway, in 2019 they reviewed all the truck routes and then we're realizing that the ordinance hadn't been amended since 1981, but like this was not being enforced at all.
Of course, so and it still isn't today.
And still not today, yeah, which is why we're kind of regrouping. But so that's part of why we're still in this battle. So things were not happening. So in 2020, there was a video about crosswalk safety with the YMCA, which was posted publicly. And this was mostly to help the residents, right? Like they're the ones that are actually crossing the street and having to be safe because of all the hazards on that street.
Of course.
In 2021, the RPNA received a grant with the West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, which is how we're starting to be able to start our efforts again on getting the trucks out of Granville. Yeah. Because the thing is, like, we've been doing this for like 25 years. And again, I keep saying we, but we as a community in the
community Park has been fighting to get this done for most of our existence.
Yeah, and
it's one road.
And it's like a little piece of road, and then
a road that is named after some, like they name roads all across the country after Cesar Chavez. Mm-hmm. And there is a city in California, in San Diego. Cesar Chavez is literally dealing with the same exact issue, almost verbatim.
Industry, truck traffic.
So this happens to specific neighborhoods, right? And this is
like, why doesn't this happen in East
20-year struggles across the country. So this is not just specific to Grand Rapids. This is very a widespread issue, and I think Grand Rapids can definitely take examples and move forward from this unsafe lifestyle that we just continue to subject people to. People in that neighborhood and like I said, across the country totally deserve better. They should not be in 20-year fights to get truck traffic away from their children and families and businesses and lives.
Yeah, but again, this is like one of those environmental injustices that frontline communities are like just forced to live with.
And they are, again, frontline because they are at the front lines of these issues. They are fighting this every single day. So Sharpen, SHRPN, the do it for me, safe and healthy Roosevelt Park neighborhood. We always get caught up on all these acronyms. But we are working to revamp and re-amplify, get the truck off of Granville, and all of the work that people have been doing for the past 20 years. Yep. If you want to know more about the air quality in that specific neighborhood or in your specific neighborhood, we're always going to remind you, you can visit the city health dashboard, and you can actually see the difference in air quality by neighborhood. We're not making this up. This neighborhood is the most polluted area in the city, hands down. And Just Air also does air quality monitoring. And so if you're curious about your neighborhood, or again, that neighborhood in particular, you can find that information there as well. We became super aware of this over the summer with all of the fires and air quality alerts that we were all receiving. So looping back around to the reason why we need to do this is because there's a lot of pedestrians on these roads. Like Nancy said, a lot of people just There's a high amount of pedestrians. There are children. There are people who choose not to drive or can't drive. And we need to bring awareness to the fact that they have rights just as cars do.
Yep.
And most cars, I have been a car owner before, and I was not always going the speed limit. Most cars definitely take over more space than they need to. So again, you are not stuck in traffic. You are the traffic. All of the single people and all of the, large vehicles, you're creating the traffic that you're frustrated about. So just a reminder, when we walk more, when we have safer spaces to walk, safer spaces to drive, but to ride bikes, and when we have quicker transit, we are more able to get spaces quicker, or like more efficiently and safer. So just awareness that when you see the striped lines all around the city of Grand Rapids, like and specifically the marked crossroads, but the ones that are not at stoplights. So like down Wealthy Street, you'll see them. A lot of the ones on Wealthy Street are marked because it is a predominantly white area. Signs too, but they have little pedestrian signs, and they do they're just crosswalks. You have to legally stop at those. There does not have to be a stop sign, and there does not have to be a flashing beacon. If you see white lines with crosses going across the street, you have to stop for pedestrians. They do have the right of way. It is a little bit different when you get to lights. They have the flashing beacons, which tells people how long they can walk. But giving them a few extra seconds to do so is always going to be much safer than rushing anybody around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess just a little bit more sharpened. So like they counted like 56 trucks per hour.
Oh, well.
When they did a study in 2022 last year. So just like imagine like that's like a truck a minute. Like you guys need to just really you just need to like put that in your head. Like that's
well, and okay,
like about a truck a minute every like minute 2 seconds or something.
Well, and then on top of all of the cars, which is
the cars.
Yeah. So which is why we need less cars on the road for pedestrians. We need more awareness for the fact that we want the trucks off Granville, not just because we don't like trucks. They are emitting an incredible amount into our air, which is making the quality less, but also we need it to be safer for people. There's no reason for over 50 trucks per hour to be riding down any road. That's going to completely crumble an infrastructure.
Right.
And then also like bike lanes, right? So we share the roads with bikes, but bikes in Grand Rapids are allowed to ride in the road. They're actually supposed to. We're not supposed to be on sidewalks at all. If you have to, sometimes it's not very safe for you to because of the amount of road traffic.
Yeah. And like to add to that, like at my community garden, I have a gardener who wants to come in and she wants to bike in, but she feels very unsafe biking on like that little corridor, right?
Of course.
Because like there's people speeding, because there's so many trucks, because there's so much traffic. She's
no one's
like,
looking
I can't
out
drive
for
my bike
her.
here. Yeah. So yeah, it's super important.
Well, it is. And it's because, some people choose to bike for air quality. Some people choose to bike for health reasons. Some people just don't want to drive, and some people can't, and so we need to respect the fact that we share these roads. Usually most bikes are not going that much slower than the actual marked speed limit in residential areas, and there are also bike lanes. So when there isn't a bike lane, bikes are allowed to be in the road, but otherwise bike lanes, just respect the amount of space that people may need and look out for them. Don't sit out and, over a crosswalk or over a bike lane that might impede somebody's ability to get somewhere safely, especially when you're talking about disabled people. I want to quick plug Lime Scooters, just because I have personally ridden over 190 miles. Thank you. In like the past probably 4 months, using Lime scooters and bikes, mainly the bikes. They are a lot safer, even though I don't want to admit it. They are a lot of fun. But they're all electric. They are relatively cheap. But it's convinced me to buy an e-bike this spring coming up. So after the winter, you know, you can absolutely make that transition. I feel healthier, I feel stronger, and I feel very liberated in not having a car, you know, to pay for my insurance and gas and all the other things.
Right.
I've gotten around relatively well. And that's because I use buses, trains to get around when I can. But I actually want to talk about the lack of trains and how that does become difficult. And Nancy can attest to this, going from living in a large city where you didn't even drive because you didn't really need to.
So when I was in California, we had so many options for getting around, right? I got my bicycle, I had public transportation, and not just any public transportation, but I had 3 different kinds to choose from.
Right.
So I had I lived in Long Beach, so I had like the Long Beach Transit, and then there was the buses I would take to college or where have you. And then there was like the metro buses, which were more county-wide, so those are kind of all around like Los Angeles. If I was like, I'm gonna pop over to like, you know, a couple 2 cities away or something. Maybe I would take
2 cities away.
Maybe I would take like the metro network, right?
Right.
But then like if I was like, I want to go to like Pasadena, which is like deep Los Angeles, and I'm like, maybe for that I'll hop on the metro rail. You know, like,
and this is metro being a train.
It's a huge like public transportation, yeah.
Yes.
So the metro had buses, but they also had metro rail, which is trains. If I wanted to go even just like into downtown LA, I would just take the metro rail in. It would leave me right by my favorite restaurant where I would get the love of my life, which is Cuban torta. But anyway,
the way you like quietly said it, but also the love of your life, that explains Nancy and food to the T. I love that.
I'm obsessed. Yeah, like, and it was like, to be fair, it was like a little bit of a mission, right? It was like an hour to get in, but then like, also like, if you've never been to LA, like there's no parking.
Yeah.
So it's like, the time that I saved looking for parking, I spent just on the metro rail, just getting there.
But you also learned how to get around. Like, you're totally fine. Look, you survived, you know. And also, I want to say, none of these things make you poor. No. And you said something. I don't know who the quote is by or what the exact quote is.
I don't know who the quote is by.
Give the general gist of it, right?
Okay, but the gist of this quote is that in a city, like in a well-designed city, the rich and the poor both take public transportation. And that's because like they made the public transportation so good that it's just the most efficient way to get around.
Exactly.
And it's almost like a class melting pot. I feel like when you're taking public transit, you're also just like less in like your little metal and glass bubble, right? Like you're kind of almost forced to interact with the people around you, the people in your city. You get to see more of the joy of strangers, the pains of strangers. Like, I just feel like it makes you a little bit more connected to the people around you.
Yeah, you really can't ignore it. And actually, to your point, something that I've really noticed in walking and biking and taking the bus more, which I used to dread, I want to be honest, in my early 20s, I really disliked the bus, but I've grown to really appreciate it. And it's because I get to see people and the city in such a different way. You know, you have conversations with people, you look at their face or they smile and wave at you, or, you know, just whatever it is. But I think Nancy found the quote.
I found the quote. So the quote is attributed to the former mayor of Bogota, Colombia, whose name is Gustavo Petro. Although I think I don't know, there's controversy around who actually said it. But basically the quote is, a developed country is not a place where the poor have cars. It's where the rich use public transportation.
I love that.
Like it's just like, it's an even playing ground too, right?
And there are countries all over the world that successfully do this. Yeah. There are countries in China. There are countries like literally Japan France, has some of the best. Barcelona has some great public transport.
London.
And these people, right? We always hear about how you can get anywhere in Europe. By train, and we simply do not have that structure built in the United States. And
imagine if we had high-speed rails. I would be so happy.
Well, and in, you know, a state like Michigan where we really do love cars, it takes hours to get across state on a bus or on a train. So just a reminder that like the more we use these things, the more our cities and our states and our country will plan into the need to fund it. And so just, again, it doesn't make you poor. It just makes the system more efficient. One thing I do want to highlight in Grand Rapids is that we do have a bus rapid transit. And so it's called a BRT, and it is the Silver Line. So you've probably seen it before. They have raised platforms. So you usually can see them. One runs right through downtown. There's also one that runs across Division. And Division also has a dedicated bus lane. And so this is the way that this system is able to operate efficiently, because they can run, I believe, every 7 minutes they're picking people up. And so they have a 9.6 miles of a loop that the bus does. There's 34 stops, and they have information displayed when each bus is next going to arrive. They run 7 days a week. They have 24-hour lighting for emergency, and they also have phones for emergency.
Nice.
They have a snow melt system under each platform. Cool. I know, which is huge. If you ride a bus anywhere, you know that having a snow melt system under you would save so much of your day. And I just think the reason why this works so well again is because there we go. We would have blocked that out. We're going to leave it in for pedestrians. But I think it's important to know that the more you do this, right? So the more we see bikes, the more aware we are of them. The more we see pedestrians, the more aware we are of them. And the more that we use public transit, the better it becomes. The more frequent people make that. And then you don't have to pay $20 to park your car downtown. You have to sit in traffic.
I'm ashamed to say how many times I've freaking paid so much for parking.
I mean, Nancy and I just talked about when I did have a car, how many times we would drive to the same place separately, and we love the friggin' planet. And now it's like not even a question. Nancy just texts me like, hey, I'm on my way, and she's picking me up. We carpool all the time.
So we're like sharing our collective carbon footprint now instead of having like two separate ones.
She let me use her car on a trip over the last week that I needed.
And then while I was here, I would either carpool with people or take the bus.
And it's just, so it is sacrifice, right? You did sacrifice your car. I did sacrifice giving up mine, and I have to find other ways. But essentially what it does is hopefully make a cleaner environment, a healthier me, and bring more awareness to the fact that some people just simply love doing this or don't have another option, and we should really give them as much respect as we give and space as we give cars. They're massive.
They're huge. And like disclaimer, like I do have an SUV, right? So it's also not the smallest car, but like it is a hybrid and
you're ride sharing.
And I was like, and I'm basically like, like it's almost like a little like community car with our friend group, right? Like whoever needs to use it gets to use it. Like my car went to Minneapolis without me because my friends borrowed it. So like,
well, and it really builds community, right? So you're building community if you're on a bus, if you are, lending things to your friends, by just being in the environment that you actually live in. I now know what some of my neighbors look like, and I was absolutely ignoring that in my car, So like this month in particular, my call to action would be to once a week consider walking somewhere under a mile or biking somewhere under 2.
That's easy enough to do.
If you don't have a bike, use the Lime bikes. I do it all the time. They are like almost too much fun. Maybe take a bus.
They have scooters too, but bikes aren't your thing.
Yes, just be really safe.
You can take the bus. Maybe try carpooling with somebody to work.
Yeah.
I actually got an email from one of my coworkers at WIMCAT about how there's this National No Car Week.
There we go.
Let me pull it up really quick.
Pull it up, please.
Let's see, WIMCAT.
And, I was really afraid while Nancy looks this up, I was really afraid to ride my bike everywhere. It definitely was something that I needed some encouragement on. But truthfully, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I know there's a lot of hills in the city, which is slightly discouraging. So e-bikes are definitely the wave.
Yes. And you can actually take full advantage of the e-bikes because from October 2nd until October 8th this year is National Week Without Driving. And I just realized I already messed up because I definitely drove today. But I also had
whatever.
7 places to be at
We
today.
carpooled.
We did carpool. That's
and
true.
I did ride my bike, so
yes,
I did that for us.
So that's something that like some of my coworkers at Wimcut are doing, and they're doing some things like they're riding their bikes together into work.
Very
they're like,
cool.
hey, if you haven't ridden the bus before, I'll go with you. So like make it a fun thing. Like it doesn't have to be like some like martyrdom. How do you say that word? Martyrdom? Like when you're being a martyrdom.
You are asking the wrong dummy.
You don't have to make it like purgatory for yourself.
No, totally. And I love that. Like encourage people to do it with you. Make it fun. It's beautiful out. Like although it should not be, let me say, it should not be 80 degrees in motherfucking October. No. But take advantage of the nice day and seriously challenge yourself by either walking or biking somewhere this week. Ditch your car if you can. You will save gas. You will save. Honestly, sometimes I only take 5 more minutes to get somewhere.
Yeah.
So
that's not bad.
I love that. That's your call to action is to bike somewhere.
And then your other call of action is walk somewhere.
Walk somewhere, take a bus, and encourage your people to do that.
Yeah, and do it together as a group. Like if you and your coworkers live close to each other, maybe you guys can all just kind of like go to a little rendezvous and like bike together from there to work, make it cool.
If you see either Nancy or I walking or biking, holla, guys, like we're really trying to make this as enjoyable as we all can. And while we have the opportunity, let's do something a little green. Yeah. So Pedestrian Safety Awareness Month. Keep that in your head. And we will see you guys
next time
in a couple weeks.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye.